welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
And this is season 3 of our podcast where we take all of the internet's wrestling content, we dump it into the randomizer, fire it up, and it picks a show for us to watch completely at random. And boy, it's been a while since we got to see some WCW. And here we are. I think the last time we watched WCW, Hulk Hogan was joining WCW for the first time in 1994.
Yes, Clash of the Champions. It was his first in-arena appearance. He had his ticker tape parade at Disney World, but that was his first in-arena appearance. Somehow, this is only a little over 5 years later, and my God, does the world feel different.
That's right. We're here to review WCW Fall Brawl 1999. This show took place September 12th, 1999. And it is weird. So I had to figure out, why was this show so weird? And of course, busting out my Wrestling Observer newsletter from Dave Meltzer reporting, 3 days before this pay-per-view, Eric Bischoff was officially relieved of his duties on September 9th. Eric Bischoff had taken the company from a $30 million a year company when he took over in 1993. The company was averaging about $6 million annually in losses. He took that to a company where in 1998 they grossed approximately $200 million and garnered a $55 million profit. His ideas were almost always short-sighted, with little long-term planning, and the result was a collapse of the wrestling boom. Expecting revenue to continue at the rate that it was in 1999, with all the facets of the business hitting a major decline, the company is going to have a struggle to break even in 1999. That is 1 year later than it made a $55 million profit and $200 million in revenue. It is struggling to make a profit 1 year later. Bischoff,
it was crazy watching in real time. I just want to jump in.
Yeah,
as a longtime WCW fan, hardcore WCW fan, just the whiplash of, them being the company that I followed, but being, a distant second for so long, and then rocketing into competitiveness, and then those 82 weeks where they won the war. And then just you could see the cracks forming, and then it just the bottom fell out. I don't think anyone was necessarily shocked that at some point the WWF would kind of recover and get ahead, but for it to so quickly become such a losing proposition in every way, shape, or form for WCW is just it's still hard to believe looking back at it. They allowed it to happen the way it happened.
Bischoff was blamed for making bad deals in a desperate attempt to turn the ratings around, from the $1 million giveaway on Nitro, which was the first thing to have the plug pulled on, to the
that's like the $1 million thing that Vince did. Remember that?
Tough Enough? Yeah.
Well, not Tough Enough, but they had the whole thing where they were just giving away money.
Oh,
remember?
That's
remember
right.
That where it's just
free money.
Vince on the Titantron giving away money, and then he got rickrolled by a caller. So I had completely blocked out of my mind that WCW did something like that.
They sure did. He also was responsible for the Master P debacle.
Oh, yeah. No Limit Soldiers. No Limit Soldiers feuding with the West Texas Rednecks. We'll see a little bit later on.
Additional ratings disasters like signing Kiss and Megadeth. Kiss was $500,000 and Megadeth was $250,000 for the one shot each.
Jesus. That's like, it's not even, in some ways that's even worse than having Lanny Poffo under contract for like 3 years at $150,000 and never once putting him on TV. I mean, not that he should have been on TV. That's not the issue, but signing him for that money, just having him sit.
He also signed Dennis Rodman again to another $1 million deal, which resulted in a poor buy rate and diminishing returns. At the same time, the gap between WWF and WCW was spreading, and adding insult to injury, Chris Jericho, who many of the headliners in WCW had convinced Bischoff that Jericho could never be effective as more than a mid-card player, he signed with WWF, and almost immediately became one of their most over performers.
Well, and that's actually something that as we go through the show, I think we'll talk about in several points, because when you look at a lot of the guys on this show and their positioning versus where their talent level and how over they were says they should have been positioned, it's utterly incredible that what happened with Jericho was not a massive wake-up call to the company in terms of the rest of those guys that were still there and finding a way to do with them what should have been done with them. Instead, they ran as far as they could in the opposite direction to predictably bad results.
Learned no lessons. And with the company falling behind in many ways because it had an aged feel with virtually every headliner except for Bill Goldberg past 40 years old. The booking is largely being handled by Kevin Nash, Dusty Rhodes, and Kevin Sullivan, with input from numerous others, which could only lead to good things. We'll see on this show. This didn't last very long because in less than a month, in October of 1999, Vince Russo would join WCW and be their head booker and writer.
I was going to say, this is such a weird in-between time frame. This isn't a perfect comparison, but I almost... I guess compare it to, remember that episode of TNA TV that we reviewed where they weren't actually on TV and it was right before they were going to get on Spike, and it was just this strange sort of maintenance period? This is significantly weirder than that. It almost feels like this strange 1 month alternate reality that WCW lived in between Bischoff and Vince Russo. And obviously there'd be many iterations of Bischoff, Vince Russo together in the remaining time that WCW had left on this earth. But yeah, what a strange time. Let's get into it.
So we see the opening video here where Sting he's teaming with Hogan, and Hogan's promising him that he's not going to double cross Sting, and Luger's
red and yellow Hogan.
Red and yellow Hogan, right? He's back to babyface Hogan, babyface Sting, and Luger, who's always, is he a good guy, is he a bad guy, stirring the pot, saying you can't trust Hogan, trying to tell Sting, and then someone attacks Sting, and Luger's accusing Hogan of it.
I will say, as a longtime, again, WCW fan, I did appreciate, as we were seeing this video, the fact that they were playing on the history of the early days of Nitro, where it was Sting and Hogan and Savage, and Hogan was trying to convince Sting that he couldn't trust Lex Luger, that Lex Luger, who is sort of a face when he was teaming with Sting, but a heel everywhere else, being managed by Jimmy Hart. We talked about that a lot in that Starrcade 95 episode that we did of this podcast. So I was intrigued by the nod to that history.
So the show is coming to you from the Lawrence Joel Coliseum in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
WCW country, NWA country, Jim Crockett Promotions country, if there ever was a city, a town, an area.
This show in the city that was Jim Crockett Promotions, it only drew 3,347 paid attendance, a live gate of $97,600.
For a show, again, headlined by Hulk Hogan defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Sting.
Both of those numbers, the paid attendance and the live gate, were considerably lower than what ECW will do for its pay-per-view event the following week at the Odeum in Villa Park, Illinois, the Anarchy Rules show. That happened before the largest ECW crowd in Gate and Company history. They drew 6,000, a full house, paying 208,000.
Absolutely. And you and I, even though we did not know each other at that time, we were both there. And man, I was thinking back to that show as I was watching this, thinking this had to have been right around the same time as Anarchy Rules. That was in September 99. And just
1 week
think
later,
about the heat at that show, and just the fervency of the crowd. And then so much of this, and part of it is the crowd isn't mic'd well, but man, like there's not a lot going on from a crowd reaction standpoint, and honestly from a lot of these matches. So let's get into the opener, because what a what a collection of men this is. On the babyface side, you have in the opener, it's Eddie Guerrero. And it's so weird seeing all of these guys, the guys that would go on to be the Radicals in WWE, sort of in WWF in their latest, sort of late stage end times in WCW. But it's Eddie Guerrero teaming with an unmasked Rey Mysterio, who is dressed just like the jeans and white tank top Billy Kidman, the last guy on this team. Their opponents, Vampiro, along with the insane clown Posse.
Violent J and Shaggy Two Dope, the insane clown posse.
Bobby Heenan gets off a good line. He didn't have many of them here on the show, unfortunately. The ones that he had, Tony Schiavone just completely no-sold, which made me sad. But he just said that Violent J is living proof that Brian Knobbs had children.
Yes. And he just randomly during their entrance says, like, yes. I like clowns.
I wrote that down too. I like the clown, says Bobby. And then Tony agrees. Maybe the most exciting thing about, honestly, this whole show is the guy on the hard camera side wearing a Jushin Thunder Liger mask, holding a perfect exact replica for some reason of the WCW US title.
Lots of stalling.
Larry Zbyszko would be telling these guys to speed it up.
Kidman and Shaggy with some awkward work early, but we got some good triple teams from Kidman and Ray and Eddie.
You'll be shocked to know those three,
they're
awesome
good.
As a team.
Turns out they're good. Yeah. The biggest news of the match was that Vampiro powerbombed Kidman. I've never seen this happen.
Yes. The most difficult thing to execute in all of professional wrestling, powerbombing Billy Kidman, of all people, Vampiro is the one who pulled it off. Vampiro, by the way, in this match, and it's a microcosm for him, even in his prime, he's such a vexing wrestler because he's got a really cool look, a cool aura. He does some stuff very well, and then there are other things in this match where he just looks hideously terrible.
Oh, yeah. Now, heat on Kidman. A power slam by Shaggy. He goes for the cover, and Eddie comes in to break up the pin, and he just breaks it up with a thumb to the eye, which is the most awesome way to break up a pin.
Particularly because other times in this match, he had broken up pins with like a really cool like sliding drop kick or a stomp, and then he was like, yeah, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to thumb the guy in the eyes. Insane Clown Posse, they try hard. They do not look like trained wrestlers, but you can tell they love professional wrestling. And somehow, shockingly, there are far worse things than the Insane Clown Posse wrestling here on this show.
Yeah, I mean, they're fans playing pro wrestler.
Yes.
Whenever Eddie and Ray or Kidman were on offense, this was great. Shaggy did a top rope leg drop, and he lands on the face of Eddie, and I was terrified that he had hurt Eddie Guerrero.
Remember before when we've reviewed Bobby Eaton matches?
Yes.
And we've talked about the Alabama Jam, and I believe I specifically talked about how you can go online on Twitter, and there are people that have posted these super slow motion GIFs or videos of Bobby Eaton hitting the Alabama Jam, and in real time it looks like he's murdering the guy. And then when you see it in slow motion, his leg, there's no part of his leg, not even a thread hanging off of his tights, that actually makes contact with any part of the body of his opponent. This is the exact opposite.
Vampiro and Shaggy try this move where Eddie is over the shoulder of Vampiro, and Shaggy goes to do like a cutter, but Eddie flips all the way over as Vampiro goes down with him. Not a good looking move here. This was
not a good looking move, and they almost killed the man. It's only because of how talented Eddie Guerrero is that he found a way out. Basically, they tried to do the 3D.
Yeah.
It did not work out well. What did work out well, and again, this is what's so frustrating about Vampiro, he hits an incredible top rope gut wrench suplex.
Yes.
That was awesome.
This was great on Kidman, yeah. And then Eddie with a missile drop kick on Vampiro. Kidman then hits the shooting star press off the top onto Vampiro for the pin. His knee lands on Vampiro's nose, and he legit broke Vampiro's nose on that.
I believe it. Kidman's shooting star press, when he hit it right, I always thought was the most visually impressive shooting star press. The problem is that was only maybe 10% of the time. A lot of the times it would be like a shooting star press knee drop, like it was here. There was the one time where he just went up and did not go forward at all and just landed directly back on the top rope, like he was Merrick Brave at an IWA Mid-South show in Midlothian on WrestleMania weekend in the mid-2000s. But yeah, this was wild, a little bit unhinged at times. Boy. But the babyface tag team is so great that they willed this to be a really fun opener.
Yeah, Ray disappeared midway through this match. He gets carried to the back by his partners and the doctor. Vampiro had whipped Mysterio Jr. into the guardrail, and Mysterio legit injured his knee. It was cut and was bleeding through his pants, and he could not walk. And the good news was, he was fine the next day. So he was injured in this match, but ended up being fine the next day. So no major injury there. The worst injury out of this was Vampiro's broken nose.
Still so weird, by the way, to see unmasked Rey Mysterio. I lived through that as a WCW fan, but not having seen that in a while, it still is jarring.
Shane Douglas. Oh, first of all, I did want to make mention. They did mention that they're still pushing the 900 hotline.
Yes.
So you could call the 900 hotline for $1.69 per minute at a time in 1999 where the internet existed.
Yes. It's you could go on any number of sites.
It's funny because they now plug WCW.com because Shane Douglas, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn, basically the Radicals plus Shane Douglas.
The Revolution is they're called.
And they're called the Revolution here. They're talking to WCW.com, and they make a guarantee that they will have a clean sweep of victories tonight.
Yeah, Saturn also asks Chad Damiani, the dork that was hosting this, he asks him how he can download Nitro Girls picks.
We see clips of Lenny winning the Cruiserweight Championship. And then we get
Rey Mysterio Jr., Lenny Lane, who is in the Lenny and Lodi tag team at this time, defeated Rey Mysterio Jr. for the Cruiserweight title.
We get highlights of Kaz Hayashi, and it reminded me that Kaz Hayashi is a good wrestler. I forgot that he was talented because he was just always so buried in WCW.
And still a great wrestler. If you're listening to this in real time, competing for the Glate promotion in his late 40s. Still very, very good. But yeah, he didn't get a lot to work with here in WCW. Here, he is challenging Lenny for the Cruiserweight Championship, coming out to the same generic music that they gave Liger and like every Japanese wrestler in the 90s. Here comes Kaz Hayashi.
Shocking they lost a discrimination lawsuit.
Basically, if you're wondering about Lenny Lane, it is the lamest version of the Adrian Street gimmick you've ever seen.
Oh, not even the same league. No, this is terrible.
This is not Adrian Street in World of Sport, you're telling me.
No, how dare you? No, this is champion Lenny Lane. He's one half of the West Hollywood Blondes tag team with Lodi.
At one point in this match, Mike Tenay absolutely murders dead his own credibility as this action is occurring, and he says, "This is another example of the depth of WCW's cruiserweight division."
Yeah, that Kaz Hayashi, who is a zero, is now getting a shot. But
and that Lenny Lane is the champion.
And Lenny Lane is the champion. Yes.
If Kaz Hayashi, who was a very good wrestler, even as relatively early on in his career, if he had been positioned as something and he was in there with another very good wrestler, maybe I would believe Kaz Hayashi is an example of the depth. But here it was just like everybody else is left. These are the guys we're putting in the cruiserweight title scene.
Did you follow how Kaz Hayashi got this title match?
I did not.
He got this match by pinning Lenny.
Oh, yes.
In a match where he was wrestling Lodi. This is the most WCW thing that I've heard so far in this show.
It actually is. There's a long and storied history of that sort of thing happening. Remember when Hulk Hogan defeated Vader, I believe in a strap match, by pinning Ric Flair.
Yes.
So this is exactly how you do
very WCW.
And again, this kills me because I have a deep, unabiding, never-ending, enduring love for World Championship Wrestling. But facts are facts.
Good news. This match was great. We're 2 for 2 This show,
you are grading on a curve. This was not great. This was good.
This was very good. This was very good. It had very good moments.
It hovered along slightly above the adequate line and peaked at a few moments. This was pretty good. It was fine.
It was, yeah. So this
was not like this was not Jason Jett and Kwee having a legit incredible
that was
opener
incredible.
in the waning days of WCW. This was not that.
Pay-per-view, the last episode we did in season 1. You can listen to that. Here, that is not this, but we got big dives by Kaz Hayashi.
He looked great. Running Liger Bomb, almost all the way
Power
to the
drive
corner.
elbow from Kaz Hayashi. Lenny had some boring offense.
Oh, God, did he ever. Kaz looked great, though. I think the reason I'm not quite as high on it as you is that I would have given just about anything to see Kaz Hayashi wrestle for the Cruiserweight title against just about anyone else. Like, for example, what if it was Kaz Hayashi against Kidman?
Oh, sure.
Mysterio,
it would have been incredible.
Or Eddie Guerrero, who we just saw wrestling the Clowns in Vampiro.
Yeah, I mean, Kaz, he's on Lenny's shoulders. He turns around, hits a Rana for a great near fall. Then we get the running Liger Bomb. He puts Lodi. So Lodi puts Lenny's foot on the rope to break up the pin there. A flying Rana off the top gets a 2 count for Kaz. Lodi gets on the apron, and Lenny then puts on the brakes so he doesn't end up running into his partner. They hug. Kaz drop kicks Lenny into Lodi. Victory roll for the 2 count. This was a great near fall.
It was. It built very well. I will give you that.
Kaz with a backbreaker goes to the top. He hits Lodi on the apron instead of taking his eyes off the ball here, not paying attention to Lenny. Lenny then gets a roll up for 2. He then hits the stroke for the pin.
No, false. He invents the Miz's career as he hits
the skull-crushing
finale. It is the full Nelson into basically a reverse version of a Russian leg sweep. It's the full Nelson. You put your foot in front of the other guy's foot and trip yourself forward into the mat. There you go. Lenny is the reason that we have all been saddled with 20 years of the Miz. Hold on. Mike Tenay at some point in this match said that Lenny and Lodi are brothers.
No, he didn't. Did he really?
He did.
Oh.
Also, it's really sad how, again, Bobby Heenan is just like, he's just there hanging out. They're not humoring him at all. Mike Tenay, I think, would, but he was not in the position to be the play-by-play guy to do it. And Tony Schiavone, for all the great things about Tony Schiavone, he was never good with Bobby Heenan. Bobby is always looking for that, that antagonistic relationship in terms of the on-air dynamic, like he had with Vince, like he had obviously with Gorilla Monsoon. And here, every time he says anything outrageous that's supposed to get the straight-laced babyface color play-by-play guy to say, would you stop that? Like Gorilla Monsoon, Tony just completely ignores him. Does not even acknowledge his existence.
Mean Gene's in the ring to interview Sting.
We're getting an in-ring interview on the pay-per-view with one of the guys in the main event. This feels much more like a Nitro.
Very much so.
Than a pay-per-view.
Sting tells Luger to stay out of his business tonight. He says he has no problem with Hulk Hogan until they step into the ring. Sting can become a 9-time WCW champion tonight.
He then takes the mic from Gene and walks around the ring cutting a promo. This is honestly one of the earliest times that I can remember that happening, where an in-ring promo, the wrestler just grabs the mic away from the interviewer. Always a pet peeve of mine. Was kind of surprised to see that here in 1999. Was also surprised in 1999 to see that we had Brian Knobbs in a match coming up. Can we just say how egregious it was that this incredible knockoff of Mike Awesome's ECW music was being used for the First Family, Jimmy Hart managing the Nasty Boy Brian Knobbs and the Laughing Man Hugh Morris.
The First Family. We get a video recap. previewing the Revolution against the First Family, and then the video just cuts off. It was a super weird ending to this video package.
It was very strange. WCW, for all the good things they did at times, they were never a video package recap company. That was always the WWF's deal. Here it was like a memo had gone out that we had to have a video recap before every match, and some were okay, some were like this, none were to the level of the WWF, but it gets worse.
Oh, it does. So Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris come out with Jimmy Hart. And now the Revolution are coming out. We hear Saginaw, Michigan. Long pause. Winston-Salem, are you ready for a revolution?
Shane Douglas, who this was their thing with the Revolution, which they were trying to be like an edgy ECW group. That's why they called them the Revolution. By the way, also amused that they just recycled the font from Raven's original WCW t-shirt here with the R in the Revolution t-shirt. Why I remember that, I don't know, but that's why you listen. But in any event, Shane Douglas, as you said, he yells out, Saginaw, Michigan. And I'm like...
Not even close.
I just had so many questions. First off, I'm sure at this point the show isn't in Saginaw, Michigan. And then I think, what would have triggered Saginaw, Michigan when you are when you're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina? Actually, because I do this a lot on the bonus content, I'm going to do this here on the free feed. While you start talking about this absolute nothing professional wrestling match, and we don't need to spend much time on it, I'm going to look up and see what were the cities they were in around this time. Okay. So we can see if that
how close they were to Saginaw, Michigan.
Yeah. What was the last time they were in Saginaw, Michigan?
Good. Good. You do that because I'm angry. I was angry at this match. This match is no rules. Now I'm a big fan of understanding the rules of the game.
I know
that's
where
about
you're
to be
going
played.
with this, by the way, because I had similar frustrations.
This match is, we're told there's no rules, so easy to follow along. No rules. So Malenko starts out with low blows all around, and yeah, no rules. Makes a ton of sense. But then, Knobbs is hitting Douglas with weapons. It was funny. It was a weapon just flies in and out of frame, and even the commentators don't know what he hit him with. But yeah, it's no DQs. And then all of a sudden, everyone just starts respecting the rules of tag team wrestling. Oh. Everyone gets on the apron, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Just come in the ring. And the match has lost me because everybody's struggling to make tags, and everyone's respecting the rules of tag team wrestling when there are no rules. Just come in the ring.
When there are no rules, and when they started the match utilizing those lack of rules.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, we had a brawl, and then a wrestling match broke out. It's the type of thing that when we have gone together to indie shows over the years, over the decades, and something like this will happen, and it's super frustrating. It was something else to see that here in WCW on a pay-per-view.
It's infuriating.
Speaking of which, my research is complete. WCW ran a double Thunder taping. Imagine that. Imagine going to not one but two episodes of WCW Thunder with such matches as Sid Vicious versus Adrian Byrd and Bobby Blaze. Oh my God. Okay, I am wrong. I need to see this. Van Hammer versus Blitzkrieg. Also a match that I legitimately do want to go back and watch. Chris Adams, Dave Taylor, and Steven Regal versus Chris Benoit, Perry Saturn, and Shane Douglas. In any event, they were at the Wendler Arena for 2 episodes of Thunder, taped September 2nd. Fall Brawl was 10 days later. Here are the cities they went to between that episode of Thunder and this Fall Brawl pay-per-view. Pensacola, Florida, Tallahassee, Florida, Albany, Georgia, Miami, Florida, Champaign, Illinois, and then 2 nights before this pay-per-view, they were in Baltimore, Maryland.
What? So nowhere near Saginaw, Michigan.
Somehow coming through the curtain to Fall Brawl in Winston-Salem, Shane Douglas yelled, Saginaw, Michigan. Whew. And it's not like they were going anywhere near Michigan after this. It was Chapel Hill. Then it was, they taped, Jesus Christ, Roanoke, Virginia, they taped 2 full episodes of WCW Saturday Night and 2 full episodes of Worldwide.
Whoa, jeez.
Went to Atlanta, Greenville, Louisville, Evansville, Cincinnati, so nowhere near Saginaw. Anyway, that's far more interesting than this match was.
Yeah, the Douglas looked like he hurt himself at one point. Like he dead weighted a pickup attempt and then rolled outside.
I was distracted by the fact that Shane Douglas here was the first of 2 men on this show to be wearing their tights inside out. I could see the tags sticking out. It was inside out.
Yeah, he came back in, started working spots, was holding his arm. I don't know if he was legit hurt here, but Hugh Morris just pins Dean Malenko with a moonsault. What?
Ugh,
this seems so weird. So they announced that they were going to have a clean sweep, and Hugh Morris just pins Dean Malenko with squash fashion with a moonsault. So
Hugh
weird.
Morris, who has never had a push at this point in WCW, gets the pin on Dean Malenko, who we'll learn later had just wrestled Chris Benoit on Nitro in a #1 contenders match to see who would get a world title shot.
I found out what happened. We'll get to it at the end of the show. So stay tuned. I'll tell you why some of these decisions were made.
We go from there to a video feature, Saturn versus Rick Steiner for the WCW World Television title, which I did not realize I had forgotten was still in existence at this point. This is during that strange time where Scott Steiner, he was a heel. We all know that. But Rick Steiner was also a heel, singles wrestler who would sometimes still team with his brother Scott. And so they tried to make his catchphrases a thing. If you want some, come get some. If you don't like me, bite me. This was, and we'll see it again with DDP in hilarious unintentional fashion later on. This was the era. You talked about desperately spending to try to win the ratings war. The other thing they were so desperately and pathetically trying to do was come up with catchphrases that could get over, like The Rock. They were so try hard here, and nothing worked. This is Revolution member Perry Saturn guaranteeing victory. He's jacked, but he is thin by Perry Saturn standards. He is, and he's challenging the TV champion Rick Steiner. Saturn, he's hitting a springboard leg drop from the middle rope, a tope suicida to the outside. Saturn is flying around here looking great. He's looking like ECW Eliminators Perry Saturn, which early on in WCW, when he was part of the flock, he didn't, because he basically came into WCW, I think, with a blown out leg. And, they kind of morphed him into more of a Taz type wrestler where he was just throwing suplexes. He couldn't really do his high flying stuff. So it was cool to see him more as the Perry Saturn we remembered from ECW. A couple highlights. Steiner he puts on a lazy man's half crab where he's sitting on the leg. What is this? It's so weird. Yeah, I have it. Yeah. Weird, lazy half crab. Also, how about when Saturn is in the half crab and it's like he's tapping out, but I guess he was just trying to get the crowd into it. It's not like this is revisionist history. This is during the time where tap outs were a thing in wrestling. A great belly-to-belly by Steiner. He gets distracted yelling at a fan, and that allows Saturn to hit the middle rope dropkick. Steiner catches Saturn with a leapfrog attempt, slams him. Oh, always love that. Steiner was past his prime a little bit here, but still always one of the coolest moves. Another cool move is Perry Saturn hitting his finisher, the Death Valley Driver, and Steiner kicks out of Saturn's finisher. Steiner then goes to the top. Saturn cuts him off, but he can't get the superplex. Steiner throws him off face first, hits the Steiner Bulldog off the top for the pin. Still TV champion Rick Steiner, the Revolution continuing to lose. Yeah, I wasn't thrilled with seeing Saturn lose here, but I actually enjoyed this match. I mean, it wasn't anything great, but for just a throwaway TV title match. Perry Saturn, knowing that he was going to lose pretty quickly, gave it 110%. Oh. He put in more effort than I think anyone would have expected given what the situation was. 9 minutes, 23 seconds. So far, in-ring wise, nothing to write home about. But, I mean, the 6-man opener was fun. cruiserweight title was okay / great, depending on who you are.
/ good. It was the best. It was one of my favorite things until this point.
It did get 3 3/4 stars in the Observer from Meltzer, so I'll give it that. Obviously, the tag match sucked, but this was a perfectly fine TV title match. So up to this point, things are okay-ish.
Mean Gene with Hogan in the back. Now this makes more sense to be in the back because we know that like when you come out, that's your biggest reaction when you come out for the first time. So like having Sting do a weird in-ring promo didn't make any sense.
No, it's always like when you do a show where you have a live show and then you tape the show afterward and you have the same guy on both shows, they always get a lesser reaction because people are tired and they've already seen the guy once.
Hogan swears on his kids that he will not stab Sting in the back.
He also says he doesn't know what Flexi Lexi is up to. He has somehow immediately morphed back into super lame, cringy, dad joke, red and yellow Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he's sick of the accusations. Can Sting trust Hogan? Hogan will make sure Sting is 190% when he pins him in the ring tonight. Okay.
Hogan, a man known for hyperbole, delivers here.
Yeah, so no stabbing in the back. His word is his bond. So the crowd is just loudly chanting, "We want Flair."
Yes. Always good when a man not on the show is getting the most reaction. So we go from that to a situation where apparently Tony Schiavone tells us Buff Bagwell has not arrived at the building. And so it is Berlin making his in-ring debut.
This is the debut of Berlin, the former Alex Wright.
Yes, Berlin, pale as a ghost. He's Berlin with a Y, but he's from Berlin, Germany. He's accompanied by his personal bodyguard, who would go on to be the Wall / Malice from Look, Brother, It's the Wall fame with Hogan. If you remember that?
Yes,
that
I do.
Classic Nitro where the Wall is like 3 miles away and Hulk Hogan can somehow see him. Just an amazing moment in pro wrestling history. He apparently refuses to speak English because he is disgusted by the language. He has an interpreter who is not here named Uta Lutendorf. He does get like a real entrance. Like the arena darkens. He's got some foreboding music. But then we see him more closely, and this look is just, it's awful. He's a pale, less in shape, skinny Alex Wright wearing generic black tights, and he has a goatee and black mohawk. The only way I can describe this, it's as if Alex Wright fell asleep on the bus and got pranked. Someone shaved his head and then drew a goatee and a mohawk on him. That's what he looks like here.
Alex Wright could have good matches. Alex Wright was young, and so he was doomed in this incarnation of WCW.
Yeah, he was still like, at this point, he would have been, 23, 24? Yeah. Because he was 18 when he first came into WCW in like 94, 95.
So he never stood a chance here. His opponent, filling in for Buff Bagwell, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Oh, Jesus. They actually have a back and forth match in Berlin's debut. I thought this would be a squash for Berlin, but no, it's a back and forth match, and then it gets weird.
This is a deeply strange professional wrestling match, which at times just becomes almost like a shoot amateur wrestling match.
Duggan hooks a front face lock, and then he's throwing in some hard shots to the back, and then like Berlin tries to go amateur wrestling for the takeover, but like Duggan's hitting a sprawl, and we've got a serious lack of cooperation here, and it is weird.
There's some like borderline Enochiism happening in this match, and it's not what I expected. Very odd. Berlin hits a snap mirror. He goes for a stump puller, and like Duggan amateur wrestles his way out of it. It is, again, just a really, really weird, awkward match. Some rugged moments. It was weirdly interesting. It was oddly interesting to watch, just because.
Yeah, we like when things aren't crisp, and we like when things add to like the struggle, right? But this was not that. This was just weird uncooperation. Well,
and seeing something like that when it's like Minoru Suzuki or Akira Maeda, pretty cool. When it's Hacksaw Jim Duggan and a pal, goateed, mohawked Alex Wright. Not so much. Sort of out of nowhere, Berlin hits his Rude Awakening style neck breaker, gets the win. They just had no idea what to do with each other. And I'm thinking, well, it was just some weird last minute thing. Maybe Buff just didn't legitimately get there. Wrong. Because we go backstage and Buff Bagwell is talking to Agent Mike Graham and telling him to change the format and saying that his flight was delayed. There's clearly some sort of story they were trying to tell. Then Buff Bagwell, dressed head to toe in Tommy Hilfiger stuff, comes out, embraces Duggan, and Duggan shoves him away, which leads me to believe we're going to be getting a Hacksaw Jim Duggan Buff Bagwell feud.
What
in 1999?
What was this? Like, so first, the match that just happened went from wrestling to struggle fighting back to wrestling, and then Buff shows up and Duggan's teasing a heel behavior. I didn't understand anything that was going on here. This was super weird.
It very much was.
WCW World Tag Team Championship. The challengers, Harlem Heat, taking on the champions, the West Texas Rednecks. It's Kendall and Barry Windham with Kurt Hennig, the former Mr. Perfect, and they are wearing their Rap is Crap Tour 99 shirts, and I immediately heard the song in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Rap is Crap. They didn't come out to it here because they had said that they had changed the theme back to their old Good Old Boys theme because they weren't wrestling rappers, so why should they use the Rap is Crap song? Which, this was not a West Texas Rednecks decision. This was a WCW decision, and file it under wrong WCW decisions because Rap is Crap is an incredible, hilarious, and great theme song for the West
Particularly
Texas
with the music video that went along with it was amazing.
There's only one thing that I hate, 'cause it's a bunch of crap. I hate rap. I like NASCAR racing, Richard Petty's still the king. Yeah, they call me a redneck, but you know that's a beautiful thing. There's only one thing that I hate, 'cause it's a bunch of crap. I hate rap. There's only one thing that I hate, 'cause it's a bunch of crap. I hate rap. There's only one thing that I hate, 'cause it's a bunch of crap. I hate rap. Rap is crap.
Needless to say, though, even if that song had played, the star when it comes to wrestling entrance music would have been the Booker T / Harlem Heat theme song, which thank God we got to hear again. Thank God it's not something that gets dubbed over on the Peacock streaming service / WWE network. So happy to hear that. It's also strange to see Harlem Heat back together as a team going after the tag titles after Booker had been such a successful singles wrestler by this point. Also, weird that Harlem Heat was not wearing matching gear.
They were not, and I noticed that as well.
Very upsetting. Booker's wearing his silver with black sort of flame trims on the bottom, and then Stevie is wearing black and red with flames. Dislike button. I'm not okay with that.
Let's, before we get too far, for the listeners who haven't heard the West Texas Rednecks, there's a little Rap is Crap. So it's all Harlem Heat early in this match. The Wyndhams, this is the biggest I've ever seen Kendall Wyndham. Usually,
which is to still say that he's about 120 pounds. It's funny because Barry is wearing this shirt because he's heavy.
He is,
and he wants to look smaller. Kendall is wearing this shirt because he still, despite all his best efforts, is thin and wants to look bigger. Two things are always true. Kendall Wyndham, never a good wrestler. Barry Windham, no matter what size, always a good wrestler.
Rock solid. He's rock solid.
I thought he looked great here in limited time, even though he was heavy, he was older. He still moved like Barry Windham. He threw the cool punches. He floated over on the suplexes. He threw the cool left arm DDT. I just wanted to see more of Barry Windham. You kind of forget that he was still around in 1999. What I really wanted watching this match, even with this late stage Barry, I wanted Windham versus Booker T in a nice 8 to 10 minute singles match.
Yeah, at one point, Booker's in the ring. He hits an axe kick and then does the spin-a-rooney. And Barry Windham comes flying in with a lariat and turns Booker inside out.
Yeah, so we don't have to do it at the end of the show. You're going to ask me what my favorite moment on this show was. It was exactly what you described. Because the timing of it, it's as Booker is in the process of finalizing the spin-a-rooney on his way up, as the final turn happens, he turns straight into a classic Barry Windham lariat. This was awesome, and it made, like I said, it desperately made me want the timelines to compress a little bit and both of these men to be in their primes at the same time, so we could have seen Barry Windham and Booker T really go at it.
Yeah, Barry hit the top rope superplex, floats over for the pin like the young Barry Windham would do, but Stevie Ray makes the save. A tag was made. The ref didn't see it. We get more offense by the Windhams, more saves by Stevie Ray. Ref misses the tag again. At this point, Stevie doesn't care. He comes in, runs wild on both Windhams. He hits Kurt Hennig as well. And at this point, Hennig hits Stevie Ray with the cowbell. The ref is dealing with the fight outside. And a missile dropkick flies in from the top rope by Booker T. He gets the pin. We have new tag team champions. It's Harlem Heat. They're 9-time tag team champions.
And the people are going crazy. I thought this was really fun. Maybe it's my love of Barry Windham. This was one of my favorite things on the show. And I actually thought the finish was really creative in that Booker made the tag like a minute and a half prior to the finish. The ref missed it due to the heel chicanery. And then that actually played into the finish toward the end. I don't know. I thought this was really fun. The oddity of seeing 1999 Barry Windham in there with Booker T worked for me.
WCW United States Championship. The challenger. 79-0 Sid Vicious. I swear I've seen this man lose before.
Well, I guess that's why they did that disqualification finish at WrestleMania 8, which we talked about. It was to keep his unbeaten streak alive. Yeah, that was, even Mike Tenay called it a dubious undefeated streak. You got it wrong, though. This is one of the rare times where WCW went all in on branding a wrestler like WWF always does, using their stupid WWF or WWE speak where they just say the same dumb phrase over and over again. If you didn't know it by now, I don't know how you wouldn't. It's the Millennium Man, Sid Vicious. Ugh.
Yeah, and his opponent is the United States champion, Chris Benoit. And like we always preface before a Chris Benoit match, we've covered it in our Royal Rumble 2003 review. If you want to hear us go deep into our feelings on how tough it is to talk about Chris Benoit, review his matches, etc., we go in depth there. We're not going to do it now in the interest of time. Go there and listen to it, but
feel free to know that it is every bit as awkward as always to be able to watch
always.
Chris Benoit match.
It never gets better. No.
It never gets better. And so just obviously know that's in the back of our minds as we're talking about this, but we will review this as the pro wrestling match that it is.
Sid Vicious throws Benoit across the ring. Benoit starts working the leg of Sid, and the crowd's chanting for Goldberg.
Which I guess, if you're doing the streak, that's clearly what they were building to as a I guess, former streak versus current streak match. Should also just note that the visual of Chris Benoit and Sid Vicious in the ring together is so strange to me. I don't know why. It just felt like two worlds colliding. Also noteworthy in that Sid Vicious looks exactly the same in 1999 as he did in 91 or 92.
At the WrestleMania 8 show that we reviewed on the bonus content over in our Patreon feed. Yeah.
Same gear, same body glove elbow pad, same curly short mullet haircut. Looks no older. Same exact body shape. It's just weird.
Yeah, Sid misses a charge in the corner. Benoit on the outside, he puts the leg of Sid between the post and the steps and kicks the steps into the leg. Benoit does it a second time, drop kicking the stairs into Sid's leg.
Tony Schiavone was really strange in this match. Sid misses a running, like we talked about, where Benoit wraps the leg around the post, wraps Sid's leg around the post. Tony screams ring postomania, which I guess is a alternate name for the pasta joint at Mall of America. He then, the spot that you talked about with the steps, he just yells out of nowhere, "Holy Christmas!"
Really weird.
What was this? Also, one other thing I want to note, because just talking about weird things, it's really strange how there are speakers set up in the corner on the floor. Did you notice that? Like wedge speakers you'd see on a stage at a rock show. Very strange. I don't recall ever seeing that before.
Yeah, it's monitors that you would see them pull out for like an in-ring promo so that they could hear themselves. But yeah, no, it
was weird to see for this. It was just strange. It was really weird.
In the ring, a springboard crossbody by Benoit. He gets caught by Sid, but Benoit reverses into a German suplex.
Huge release German suplex. He goes for a second one. Sid stops it. Benoit goes for a crucifix. Sid stops that and hits a big Samoan drop. And I feel pretty safe in saying already, this is the most action-packed and best in-ring Sid Vicious match I've ever seen.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Cobra clutch by Sid into a slam. Benoit then fights back, drop kicks the knee of Sid, puts on the crossface, but Sid powers out by just standing up and carrying Benoit to the ropes.
Going back to that Cobra clutch just quickly, I bought that as a finish as much as I buy it when Okada uses his variation of the Cobra clutch in New Japan.
He goes to the ropes, but he collapsed just before the ropes, but he was able to get his giant leg over and get it on the rope for a break.
This was an awesome spot as well. Never seen that out of the crippler crossface. A guy just standing up and then Benoit still being in that crossface position and Sid just sort of walking his way to the ropes. Very cool.
Benoit misses the diving headbutt off the top rope. A power bomb by Sid, and he gets the pin. New United States champion, 80-0. It's Sid Vicious.
Yeah, this result, I guess by this point we should not have been surprised given what happened with the Revolution throughout this show. But as far as the match goes, like this was really, really good. Like I said, I don't recall ever seeing Sid Vicious in an actively good match just from a pro wrestling standpoint, and he won clean with a powerbomb and goes to 80-0, quote unquote.
Diamond Dallas Page, DDP, is taking on Goldberg, and it's 1999. Goldberg is still beloved by the people. These people, there's not a lot of people there, but the people that are there are here to see Goldberg.
For a few moments, when he comes out for this entrance, it feels like the glory days of Nitro being on top of WCW leading the wrestling world. People are losing their minds. Just feels like a big deal. And I'm excited because at first I think, wait, is this the DDP versus Goldberg match? And then I quickly remember and realized, no, that was Halloween Havoc, 1998, some 11 months earlier. One of the greatest matches in WCW history. Instead, we are here. Goldberg now has one loss in his career, that being to Kevin Nash, dropping the world title at Starrcade 98. It's also DDP as a heel, which at this point I thought sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. But what did work was one of the most underrated stables, factions, groups you want to say of this era, the Triad, the Jersey Triad with DDP, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Chris Kanyon. I loved that group.
Yeah, absolutely underrated group. We get the full-blown Goldberg entrance, security leading him out.
Police even take him to the ring, not just staying in back. They go all the way to the ring.
Yeah, they didn't stand in the pyro with him while he's standing there inhaling
Yes.
the smoke, which is always not healthy. But
No.
the inside the ring, the ref pats down DDP, finds a chain and then a roll of quarters in his hand, and Goldberg just starts throwing Page around, knocking him with shoulder blocks.
Before that, I just want to mention, this is, like I said, the era of DDP desperately trying to find catchphrases that can make him be The Rock. And he grabs the mic before this. He says, "Kill it, monkey boy." And then he says, I remember him trying to get this over. There were like 6 or 7 different things that he tried and none of them took. You love me, you hate me, but you'll never forget me. And he said it in a way that he expected the crowd to pick up the never forget me at the end. And it just didn't happen.
No, there was no sing-along with DDP here.
No.
Page goes into the crowd to run away. Goldberg follows him. They fight in the crowd. He throws him back into the ringside area, then back into the ring. DDP catches Goldberg coming into the ring, tries a diamond cutter, but Goldberg picks him up into a power slam. Low blow by DDP. And when he accidentally, quotes, pokes the referee in the eye, allowing him to pull a weapon out of his tights, and he knocks Goldberg out with it.
This is so strange. So he pulls these brass knucks or knuckle dusters, whatever they are. He pulls them out, puts them on his fist, punches Goldberg in the face, knocks him out. Then he just walks away, stomps on Goldberg, and then just continues wrestling. Brass knuckles as a transitional spot. He never goes for a pin. And even Tony Schiavone, the actual play-by-play guy on the show, he doesn't even try to cover this up. He just openly talks about how weird that was.
It was, but then Page gets the weapon again and nails Goldberg in the head again with it.
So he does that, and then I go back to what I said earlier about him trying to figure out a way to become The Rock. He hits the lamest version of a knockoff people's elbow you've ever seen. He runs at Goldberg, and then he does the DDP bang thing a bunch of times and then drops this lame elbow and only gets 2. It's like an example of a guy trying way too hard for something that's never going to work, but he's completely oblivious to it, and he's every week trying to figure out how to make this work. One other thing I do want to mention that is also just, to me, just mind-blowing. They talk about how this match, this time period that we are coming up on, the 2-year anniversary of Goldberg being in WCW.
It was crazy that so much happened in 2 years for that guy.
2 years, particularly, like, it's not even 2 years of Goldberg being Goldberg. Like, when he first came into WCW as Bill Goldberg, like he beat Hugh Morris in his first match, and then he had a back and forth feud. He didn't lose by pinfall, but he had a back and forth feud with Steve McMichael, and then he really picked up steam, and the streak really got off and running. But that was only 2 years prior to this. It just goes to show how, like, wildly accelerated the timelines were in WCW in every conceivable way at this point.
Goldberg makes a comeback. The Jersey Triad hits the ring. Canyon breaks some weapon over Goldberg's head, legit cutting his shoulder and back.
It looked like it was like a stuntman's version of a glass platter, but it's still, even though it's shattered well, it's still lodged into a piece of it lodged into Goldberg's neck and cut him. DDP then hits a huge Uranagi for a long 2.
Canyon and Bam Bam go after Goldberg, but he clotheslines both of them. He spears DDP, hits the jackhammer for the pin. Goldberg is popular. They did a lot of tricks to make this match go longer, and it worked. It was a good way to get a longer Goldberg match. But the people wanted to see Goldberg do power Goldberg things and win, and they got what they wanted.
Yes, Goldberg hits a huge spear, which it's actually funny. On the replay, we see that referee Mickey J shoved DDP into the spear from Goldberg. Goldberg hits the jackhammer, gets the win.
I was one of those guys who always thought that the jackhammer was an underwhelming follow-up to the spear. Like, the spear was always so spectacular, and then the jackhammer was like only spectacular when he did it on like big dudes like the Giant or something.
Exactly. Well, I was always amused by it. In some ways, I thought it
should have been the other direction. Like, do the jackhammer as the setup for the spear.
Yeah, the guy staggers up and then gets speared. I didn't mind it just because I thought it made Goldberg even more of a badass, that like he hits this spear that cuts his opponent in half, but he's not done killing them. And so he just, for fun, he hits the jackhammer, not out of necessity, but just for fun, he hits it. This was nowhere near, not even in the same stratosphere as that miracle match they had at Halloween Havoc 98, but in a vacuum here, totally fine. Fun match. Goldberg wins. People go nuts. The other thing that's noteworthy here is that as much of a non-entity as Bobby Heenan was on this show, he was so great in this match. I want to love anything in my life as much as Bobby Heenan loves calling Goldberg matches and just getting Goldberg over even more than he already was. It was fun to hear an excited, energized, engaged Bobby Heenan for this match.
WCW World Championship, the challenger Sting against your champion in his red and yellow, Hulk Hogan. We get the Michael Buffer, let's get ready to rumble.
Well,
and
before that, we get a video package, which is a slightly different cut of the same opening video package we had to start the pay-per-view. However, I noticed one thing that I did not notice earlier on, and they don't ever call attention to it for some reason. But when the whole thing happens where Sting confronts Hogan backstage, I guess it would have been on Nitro, probably not Thunder, because none of those guys would have showed up to Thunder. But Sting confronts Hogan backstage. Hogan is sitting down and talking to someone, and that someone is Bret Hart.
It is.
There's, to this point, the only acknowledgement of Bret Hart's existence as a WCW rostered member is this split second of seeing him backstage talking to Hulk Hogan in street clothes.
We're to the wacky Buffer descriptions during the intro portion of the show now.
The true lone wolf with no affiliation, Sting.
Wearing black with white, he stands 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighs 259 pounds. He is the true lone wolf of this sport, a man who refuses any association or affiliation. His rise to star status has been an accomplishment of merit, not favor, of honor, not deception. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the WCW #1 ranked heavyweight contender in the world, the master of the Scorpion Deathlock. Here is Sting! To the ring, wearing the yellow and red, he stands 6 feet 7 inches tall and weighs in at 274.5 pounds. He is, without a doubt, the most recognized face and name in the history of professional wrestling. He's the legendary king of Hulkamania. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the reigning and defending WCW Heavyweight Champion of the World, Hulk Hogan.
Very well said by Michael Buffer. He is the most recognizable face in pro wrestling, and his face is on the cover of the newest and brand new WCW magazine.
Bret Hitman Hart comes out to, as Buffer said, pass on his personal offer of good luck and may the best man win.
And he says it in the Michael Buffer voice, which is always hilarious. I was also amused by the fact that there's a sign in the crowd at this point. It says Worst Wrestling Federation, which it reminds me of the sign that I and my friends had hung over the balcony at Spring Stampede in 1994. We thought we were so clever. It was a sign making fun of Dustin Rhodes, and it said Stin.
Nice.
We spent all night Saturday night making this sign in a friend's garage with a huge giant white sheet. We had multiple colors of spray paint. This was just a sign, but it made me think of that. The amusing part, though, is that the WWE went to the trouble on the WWE network of blurring the W, the W, and the F in this worst wrestling federation sign out. It just amazed me that when you consider the lack of quality control and continuity and everything else in modern day WWE, that they had someone scrubbing these shows to that level that they blurred the letters WWF out of this sign. Just blew my mind.
Yeah, so Bret Hart comes out and just shakes the dude's hands and then leaves. Really lame.
Unbelievable. Bret Hart. You look at everything that's on this show, and you're telling me
couldn't squeeze in Bret on this one.
You couldn't squeeze in a Bret Hart match here on this show. There's no, I mean, you had to get in Jimmy Hart and Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris. You had to find a place for Berlin and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You're telling me you couldn't have sent out Bret Hart and El Dandy? Come on.
So the story of this match is two baby faces not cheating, having a wrestling match. As much as Hogan's babyface offense is not cheating because it's a lot of cheating.
Well, that was the funniest thing to me about this match. Just as an aside, we've talked before about, you know, the glory days of Hulkamania before any heel turn, red and yellow Hulk Hogan, and how funny it is that so much of his offense is eye rakes, back rakes, doing stuff behind the referee's back. And then here, you know, he's in WCW. He's been Hollywood Hogan, whereas a heel, all those things were part of his act. He's turned back to red and yellow Hogan, but it's not like you're thinking, well, he's just not, you know, he just hasn't given up his heel offense for being Hollywood Hogan. He was doing that the whole time back in the day as red and yellow holds.
This is hideously boring Hogan offense. He's older, he's broken down, and he can't be on offense this long. It was not good, and it was hideously boring.
Not good, no heat, because again, the story, the crowd at this point has no reason to love Hulk Hogan. He's been a dastardly heel for years. The NWO has died, so there's not even the cool factor of that. All WCW fans want to do is cheer Sting.
That's it.
That's all. That's all they want to do. All WCW fans want to do is have Sting and have somebody that they can hate watching beat up Sting. And this was not that. It was just so weird.
No, this was so bad. Hogan put on an abdominal stretch, bringing more boring to this match. The crowd is dead. This is 1999. Hogan's doing eye rakes and back rakes, and this is, what am I watching? Like, it's so boring. Why is Sting getting his ass kicked by Hogan?
Well, that's a constant. Go back to the Starrcade '97 match, the one of the most disastrous matches in pro wrestling history. After that incredible year-plus build,
Sting finally. Oh, good.
I would say the other thing that I, as someone who watched every episode of Nitro, I couldn't help but think back to, it was, I'd say probably in the first month or two of Nitro, when they had a Hogan versus Sting match, when Hogan was in that weird in-between phase where he was like, the Dungeon of Doom had driven him to wear black and shave off his mustache, and it was almost a test drive of him turning heel. But the crowd didn't know what to make of it, and Sting was still kind of late stage Surfer Sting, and yet that match had so much more heat than this match, which kind of had a similar setup, but WCW had just sucked the life out of people for the last year or so, that there was nothing. This was a complete nothing match, and it was Hulk Hogan versus Sting for the World Heavyweight title. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, Sting hits 2 stinger splashes, misses a 3rd stinger splash, and Hogan starts to Hulk up. He hits the big boot. Hogan drops the leg for a visual pin.
Oh.
And then DDP hits the ring. DDP hits the ref and then hits a diamond cutter on Hogan.
One of the worst diamond cutters you ever see. Hogan can barely take that. He shouldn't be taking it. We should mention, by the way, this whole match, this whole thing is what we're about to say plays out. It's all built to making Hulk Hogan the ultimate babyface. And he hulks up right before this, everything you talked about, DDP coming out, and the crowd is just the people that are paying attention are booing. Everyone else just is not even reacting. Like, this just is not working.
DDP puts Sting on top of Hogan. The referee counts 2, and Hogan gets his shoulder up.
So then DDP hits the diamond cutter on the ref.
DDP diamond cutters the ref, so Bret Hart hits the ring to attack DDP. Sting bails, and Hogan's in the ring. Sid Vicious runs in.
As if the randomizer knows that we just watched WrestleMania 8 on the bonus content feed. I was not expecting this.
No, WrestleMania 8 revisited. Sid runs in and gets a big boot to the face, a big boot to Luger as well. Sting now has his baseball bat, and he hits Hogan with the bat, tosses it to Luger. Sting and Luger are together. Luger is in the ring with a bat, and a new referee comes out. Sting puts the Scorpion Deathlock on, and this referee says, "We've got a winner." Sting is the champion again. Sting and Luger are the ones to stab Hogan in the back. A Sting heel turn? Really? What am I watching?
It's maybe the only thing dumber than a Goldberg heel turn, and they managed to do both in relatively short order. It also is funny, though, because as a WCW fan, Sting and Luger conspiring to beat Hulk Hogan is the most babyface thing you could possibly have. Yes, and helped by longtime WCW wrestler DDP and Sid Vicious. Like, all right. So apparently, and I'm sure this didn't happen, but what this would lead you to believe is that there is now a super heel group of Diamond Dallas Page, Sid Vicious, Lex Luger, and Sting, and they are trying to eliminate the team of Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart from professional wrestling.
Yeah, no, that's not what this is. This is just, the show just ends. It was a craptastic main event. This was awful.
Yeah, that was...
So I'm like, why did this happen? So we know that Bischoff got fired shortly before the show. We know new guys are in charge. So let's start at the beginning. Vampiro, considered a Bischoff pet project, was asked to do the job in the opener. The Revolution, who had heat with the new bookers in charge because they
particularly Kevin Sullivan, I would imagine.
Yes, they had heat because they went over their heads to Bischoff on different occasions to get finishes changed in the recent weeks. They were given the job of major humiliation by losing every match after Perry Saturn, and in the interview earlier, guaranteed a clean sweep. They would instead lose their 3 matches, some by just getting completely squashed, en route to those every loss being a clean loss to punish them. So obviously, Chris Benoit, along with Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn, they would debut in the WWF as the Radicals, January 31st of 2000. So just 4 months away.
If I remember correctly, didn't Chris Benoit defeat Sid Vicious for the world title and then leave? Like, he was gone the next night. He won the world title.
They gave it to him to try to get him to stay. Yeah.
I remember being so excited. Benoit was, and again, so weird to say it now, but Benoit was my favorite wrestler at that time. And seeing him beat Sid and finally win the WCW world title, holding the big gold belt, I'm like, yeah, WCW is finally doing something I like. And then next night, he's gone and they're trying to crown a new champion.
So I told you at the top, they did not learn any of the lessons of Chris Jericho.
Exactly.
And instead ran these 4 guys off, and they would go on to have amazing careers as top stars in the WWF.
Well, yeah, particularly Benoit and Guerrero. In so many ways, and it felt that way at the time, that felt like the real death of WCW. When those guys left, it felt like sort of the last hope of WCW ever changing left with them.
Well, we talked about your favorite thing already on the show.
Yeah.
Worst thing on the show for you?
It has to be Hogan versus Sting. I mean,
it has to be. There's no other answer that other than like Bret Hart his involvement being handshakes and
Well, and that's part of it.
and
That's part of
personal
the-
offers of good luck.
the whole presentation of the match, that would be part of it. I mean, from an in-ring standpoint, you could make the argument that the no disqualification tag match that
Horrible.
started as a brawl and ended as just a tag match, that was maybe every bit as bad, but the stakes were nil. Here,
Exactly.
it's Hogan versus Sting for the world title, and it was a complete non-entity and then ended in such a nonsensical fashion. One of the most disappointing and I guess, just disappointing in every way main events you could possibly have on a pay-per-view. Just an utter failure of a main event, I think would be the best way to describe that.
Couldn't agree more. And make sure you interact with the show via social media, Twitter and Instagram at Wrestle at Random, Facebook.com/Wrestling at Random as well. If you're not on social media, you can send us an email, wrestlingatrandom@gmail.com. We mentioned some of our bonus audio content, including that WrestleMania 8 match, Hogan and Sid. We did all of WrestleMania 8. We did a whole bunch of other shows. We've done 50-plus episodes, if you're listening in linear fashion, over in the bonus content. Those are new episodes you have not heard. So if you love what we do here in the free feed, you can support the show and unlock hours and hours, 50-plus episodes of bonus content waiting for you right now as soon as you go over to patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom or in your Apple Podcast feed, hit that subscribe button. That unlocks not just one episode, but all of the bonus content for you. It's just a great way to support the show. If you can't support us financially through the Patreon, we understand that as well. We would appreciate if you tell your wrestling fan friends about the show and tell your friends that used to be wrestling fans about the show. They might want to take a trip down memory lane with us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This show has defeated my soul so much that I can't even come up with a weird, meandering, sometimes good, sometimes not way to talk about former friends and how this show relates.
If you want to wish your former friends a personal offer of good luck, then you should tell them to subscribe to this podcast.
There you go. And don't stab him in the back like I don't know. I can't even say stabbing in the back. That's for me. That Sting Luger turn on Hogan was one of the most heartwarming things I've ever seen. I can't imagine that being described as a heel turn. But yeah, as far as WCW shows that we've watched and reviewed, there have been some others that weren't great. There have been some that have been fantastic. In some ways, I think this was even more depressing than Bash at the Beach 2000. Honestly, like that was just staggeringly dumb, whereas this was just sad and like quiet, and it just felt like, again, I use it to talk about the main event, just like a sad failure.
That it was, but good news, what wasn't a failure was this podcast. This was a rousing success, and with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks everyone again for listening. We'll talk to you again